Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Good Morning Cannabis. I have my good new friend, Ty Cooper, who is with the state of New Jersey, who's going to tell us all the things that the state is doing to help promote the cannabis industry. And we are so excited to hear from you, Ty. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into this? And like, what is the state doing? What are some expectations? Again, this is a new thing, it's a positive thing. I love what the state's doing, by the way. So tell me about you, tell us about you, tell us about the state is doing, and then I'll interrupt you every once in a while with a few questions.
No, thank you so much, Todd, for having me on your show. Good Morning Cannabis. I'm super happy to be here. And just a little bit of background about myself, the Chief Community Development Officer for the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. We are the economic engine for the state. So when you think about the large things that are happening from film studios to large scale development, that's EDA. But so is cannabis. Cannabis is a new emerging field that has a ton of nuances, a ton of different resources available. And so we're going to drill down into a little bit more of what we're doing at EDA. Cannabis is definitely personal to me. My mother is a minister, and my dad has been sick for a long time, going on like a 10-year battle. And one of the only things that has been able to provide him with any amount of relief has been cannabis. So this kind of put everything on its head for my mom, who was a minister, who was against it, to our family, but really looking at it through a different lens, one for recreational, but one for medicinal. And so again, to have a parent that's been suffering from a long-term illness and to find relief in cannabis really makes this a kind of personal thing for me. As the state, I think we're looking at a really comprehensive approach to cannabis. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a one-pot solution, but there, I think, are numerous answers. So you've got the Business Action Center, you've got the CRC, and we all play different but valuable roles within this cannabis industry. And we have to really work collectively in order for this to do something that's intended to do. So excited about this, excited about the governor's support behind this. We talk about a stronger, fair economy, and that starts right at home with cannabis.
Awesome. So tell us, Ty, like, give us some of the basic nuts and bolts of the program. And, I guess the other thing is, what can people really expect? We don't want to set expectations so high that we fail or so low that people don't bother to take advantage of it. But what's like the ABCs of what the state is doing, especially with the EDA? Tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts.
No, I think it's important to talk about what we're doing, but also how we got here.
Awesome.
And so as again, we know, cannabis has been taking the state by storm for years on the medicinal side. Recreation, again, really starting to boom in New Jersey. One of the things we started doing early on before we launch any new product is do a lot of market research. So we did seminars, we did webinars, we had roundtables, really just to get market information or research back from the folks who are actually dealing with cannabis on a day-to-day basis. So from North, Central, and South Jersey, we got a ton of feedback from folks that have been in the industry from a long time. One, the barriers to entry, two, just access to capital and some of the municipal regulations that are kind of prohibiting folks. The numbers that we heard were astronomical, anywhere from 1 million to 10 million, depending on the type of license that you're going to open, that you're going to have, whether it's cultivation, manufacturing, or retail. The prices vary, but they all trend towards that $1 million or higher. So one of the things that we immediately saw was that there, especially for social equity candidates, for BIPOC candidates, but just for folks entering the market, again, it's really hard to get access to capital. So one of the immediate things we thought about was, as a state entity, as EDA, what can we do? We were authorized $10 million to pilot a program. And I have to say pilot, because that's exactly what this is. In order to get this right, we're going to pilot, fail, pilot, succeed, pilot until we can scale into something that's going to be really sustainable for this market. But again, everything that we do to pilot our programs is based upon market research. So we got $10 million for a state-funded program, which is huge. And again, this cannabis equity program really is born out of the CRC and out of the CREAM Act. For us, we have two different grant phases, and I think you're going to actually like the names. You've changed them 1,000 times. The first phase is called the Joint Ventures Grant, and this is a grant up to $250,000. And I will say, as a state, so far, we've heard that we have the largest grants, not loans, but the largest grants in the nation, 250 is not a small sum of money, it is a substantial sum of money, but still only kind of like hits the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to cannabis. This specific grant that we have is really targeted towards those that have their conditional license, but they also have site and municipal approval. That means in addition to getting approved from CRC, they've also gone through the municipal hurdles of obtaining a property there and also being approved by that municipality. We are going to authorize up to 24 grants for this first one that we're doing for joint ventures. And again, it's a smaller pool of candidates, but it's also a lot of money that we're working with. So we want to make sure, again, that it's folks that have, they're fully invested in this process, and but for a little bit of cash, they can get over the hurdles. And again, the entire purpose for our funding is to get folks from conditional site approval, municipal approval, all the way over to annual, so they can actually start opening up their businesses.
Awesome.
For this specific grant, 40% has been earmarked for social equity candidates, and 5% has been earmarked for impact zones. So that's the first one. That's the very first grant we have. So that's joint ventures. The second phase of the grant is really geared towards those that are a little bit further behind in the process, and they also need a bit more technical assistance. This is a grant up to $150,000, also for 24 candidates. But with this pot of funding, we really targeted it towards social equity candidates, ensuring that, again, we're pairing that technical assistance with social equity candidates. We're holding their hand throughout the process. Again, this is not a one-stop shop. This really is a wraparound, holistic process that we're dealing with. And again, for the second pot of funding, seed equity, that's exclusively for social equity candidates. So 2 big grants, one for 250,000, the other one for 150,000, and a really targeted approach with our audience. We're going to be doing a series of webinars, one this coming Thursday from, I believe it starts at 6 p.m. But again, really just to inform those that do already have their conditional licenses that there are opportunities for funding. This is a competitive program, as we know. And then again, for us, 24 for 250, 24 for 150, with the goal of getting them all across the finish line of being able to open up their businesses, really focus on retail, but to be able to open up their businesses and to convert to annual. That's the goal behind the program. So simple in theory, super complicated behind the scenes, but we also know incredibly necessary in a market that is so intensive when it comes to resources and financing as well.
Yeah, I can see that. So one of the questions that come up that I've heard is, how are you going to decide who gets those funds? Like, it's competitive, but what's the deciding factor? Is it based upon the best I don't know, application? Is it based upon, what is it based upon? So the audience.
No, so it is. So there's a couple of things that we have in place, recognizing that there's going to be a huge influx of applicants that are coming in. We do have a $1,000 application fee, and I say that out front because I want folks to be prepared as they're applying. On Friday, on the last week, we actually launched the eligibility assessment tool, which you can find on our website right now at njeda.com. This eligibility assessment tool allows folks to answer a bunch of pre-screen questions that even allow them to see if they're eligible for this program or not. What we don't want is folks putting out $1,000 for an application that they're not eligible for. So in advance, we have our eligibility assessment tool, which folks can literally put their information into this tool. It can determine whether or not they're even eligible for this program. And if they aren't, we will refer them back to CRC or to the Business Action Center, where there's a bunch of resources that are also being launched there. So you have the eligibility assessment tool to make sure you're actually eligible. And then what we have is the actual application, which will launch about a week later, towards the end of March. And again, the application has a series of questions. There's uploads that you're going to provide, including making sure that we can see your site approval, municipal approval, whether it's through resolution, etc. Those will be uploaded to an application portal that will be launched on a specific day in March. And it is a first come, serve process, right? So with this, we are making sure that we provide information about the eligibility assessment tool and the application in advance. And we're also holding 2 webinars to inform folks about, am I actually eligible for this? But what is the grant that I'm applying for? What are going to be the requirements along the way? What are the benchmarks that we have to reach? So again, for us, it's making sure that we're providing information. We'll inundate you with as much information as possible to make sure that folks are prepared. But again, it is a first come, first serve process that we have, and we have internal mechanisms through our application portals to ensure that everything is time stamped.
So from a personal perspective, just a question for you. If you are to go into time, say 3 years from now, and you're looking back, what would you have hoped to have seen as the result of this new pilot program?
Up to 50 conversions from conditional to annual licenses in the state of New Jersey, and thriving retail businesses that have been open, that are more competitive in New York, Pennsylvania, or any of our other neighboring states. So again, to turn those 24 into actual licenses and to have them open, not just, sustaining their businesses, but also thriving cannabis businesses throughout the state of New Jersey.
I love it. That's great. Anything else you want to share before we kind of wrap up? Do you have any other thoughts you want to share with the
Sure.
group?
I would just say there's such still a negative stigma around cannabis, which is so unfortunate. And I think with everything we're trying to do upon the state level and working with our partners is to really shift that negative stigma into something that is truly possible and something that's truly positive. And so that would be the one thing I would leave with is one, transform that image and that negative stigma.
Yes.
Two, we have a great state, a great governor who's really leaning into cannabis, making sure that there's also resources available for those that need them. And then three, EDA is always the place to go when you need resources or access to capital.
Well, I'm very proud of the state. I'm very proud of what's happening here. Thank you so much, Ty, to be the spokesperson for this meet out in front. I really think this is going to make a difference. And I'm going to just say, keep going. I mean, keep going and keep on. So, I think this may inspire hopefully other states to do the same. I think the way we're doing it as a state of New Jersey is better than how other states, but then again, I am a Jersey guy, so I can say that. But so that's great. So with just a few highlights, if people want to find more information, just give those websites again where they can go. And then if someone wants to get in touch with you, is there a way that they can get in touch with you?
Yes.
Okay.
And see, these are good follow-up questions. So we have an email address dedicated just to cannabis. Super complicated. It's cannabis@njeda.com. So like I said, keep it as complicated as possible.
Right.
And then also on our website, njeda.com, if you go under financing and incentives, there will be a vertical for cannabis, and you'll be able to find the eligibility tool, all the FAQs, all the information you're going to need for our joint ventures grant program. So yeah.
Awesome. So Ty, thank you so much for being on the Good Morning Cannabis show.
Thank you.
And we'll be doing a follow-up as time goes on, but I encourage everyone in the audience to check this out and to be a supporter. I mean, even if you don't apply for the grant, support the people who are applying for it. And because as far as I'm concerned, this is my worldview. This is really a community. Cannabis creates community. Cannabis brings people together. And we should try to make it so that people who wouldn't normally be able to get into these industries, give them an on-ramp, give them a chance to, create a business that is sustainable and that changes people's lives, both those who are the business owners and those who are served by it. That's the way that I see it.
Well, I like it. I dig your style, 100%. Thank you so much, Todd. It's been such a pleasure.
Same here, and we'll talk again. So have a great day.
You too. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.